It's one of our key seminars for the semester, and we'll be holding it every Wednesday at 4 o'clock at this hour. And what we're going to use this time for through the semester is to give you an opportunity to talk to us about what's going on, and Professor Finkel will organize that plan. So if you have something that you really like to talk about and keep you current, send Professor Finkel a note. He'll let you know if the topic's appropriate and if we have a slot for that to happen. We'd like to fill up the whole semester on the most interesting things that are going on. I assure you that my talk will not be the most interesting. That's why I'm always first. It's because I set the bar so low, and then we can only improve from there. So what I want to talk to you about, first of all, and I've kind of developed a little bit of a tradition in doing this at this talk, is the Mary Meeker 2018 report. Those of you who've heard me speak at Keeping Current before know that I usually kick off with some numbers that represent trends from the Meeker report that might surprise you. And it's just a great way to break the ice because we're all practitioners in computer science. And this report's actually really interesting. So for those of you who haven't seen the Meeker report, you can just Google her name and find these reports for every year for the last decade. And they show some really interesting trends. Here is the list of trends from the report this year, and I'm going to pick up on just a couple of them and point some things out to you. So first of all, it turns out that there is a limit to growth for smartphones, for example. If you look at the red curve, what you're seeing is that the growth is actually slowing in the cell phone market. And you know, you can see that earlier in the decade that wasn't actually true, but there was a turning point around 2011 or 12 where the growth is now slowing down. And that's a pretty interesting trend because most of us tend to think that things are really rolling and there isn't a slowdown in growth. Mary Meeker thinks that that might actually be correlated to what's called internet penetration. It turns out that over the past decade, and you can see on this graph, the horizontal axis is the year, and the vertical axis is the percentage of internet penetration globally, where who has the internet in terms of the entire population. It's kind of an interesting graph. The penetration is now at almost 50%, which is mind-boggling. 50% of all people on the planet have access to the internet in some way, shape, or form. Either they own a device or they work where they use the internet. So it turns out that the higher the penetration, it may in fact be the slower the growth because the early years are done and now we're in the territory that's a harder slog. So, take-home message, growth is harder to find after hitting a 50% market penetration. So I found that to be kind of interesting from Mary Meeker. Okay, so again, none of this stuff is from me, but I thought I would pull out a few things, point them out to you. And if you're curious, you'll go back to the report and take a look. Second thing, digital media usage. It turns out that maybe there isn't an end to the amount of growth that we can see in this area.
The last 24 hours.
It's really strange and surprising, isn't it? And maybe a little bit disturbing that we continue to use more and more of our time, right? Messing around with digital media. And you can see the trend. Again, the horizontal axis is the last decade in terms of year, and the vertical axis is hours spent per day in the United States. And a decade ago, it was under 3 hours, and now we're up to about double that. So how far do you think we can go?
Yes.
25.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. There's going to be an end to this growth, but compared to the other growth chart, right? We're not there yet. We have the internet penetration, but now in terms of you actually using the media, there's a lot of room yet for all of those people globally to be using more and more hours, right? In terms of consuming digital media. That's maybe worrisome and also really interesting in what we've created. Also note that these bars are made up of different devices. So you have other devices, the desktop, laptop, and then the mobile. Do you see the trend in the growth of mobile? Yeah, does that match your experience? More and more, do you find out that you're using your mobile to do media that you might not have done 5 years ago or 2 years ago? I certainly find that it's true for me. The more free bandwidth that they throw at me in my cell phone plan, the more likely I am to, for example, watch a video on my cell phone instead of cranking out the laptop to watch it or turning on the smart TV to watch it. Interesting that they don't put the smart TV on here. I would like to see that number. Yeah, Mary.
So it's would be quite interesting for me to know if this 3.3 hours a day are taken away from book. I don't know where we look.
Yeah.
I think that would be quite interesting.
These are really interesting questions because we don't know. It's a zero-sum game, right? So where is the time being taken away from?
Correct.
And we don't really know that in this report. We know that this number is growing. If it's being taken away from reading, would that disturb you, Eric?
Possibly. It would not disturb me at all if we realized that these 3 hours were taken away from somebody just sitting on a sofa doing nothing. That's I would not be worried.
Well, it's a good point. So dividing these numbers a little more finely could give us insight. And I assume that there's room for that kind of research. Here's a really interesting graph. Turns out people are using Wi-Fi a lot. So it hasn't reversed. You see it's really flat compared to the scale of the graph, right? These are global Wi-Fi networks. Again, the x-axis is time the last decade. Actually, it's almost 2 decades. And the vertical axis is a measure of adoption globally of Wi-Fi networks. And so it continues to rise at essentially an exponential rate. Wi-Fi is not probably going to go away. From the report last year, you may remember that Meeker said machine learning, and in particular voice recognition, continues to improve, and I showed you this slide. So this is from last year. So Meeker report speaks to it this year. It turns out that Meeker claims it's launched. Voice recognition is there, and it's there to stay. So does this match your experience with the Amazon device, with the Google device, voice-activated platforms? Yes?
Are we talking about recognizing specific voices, or are we talking about language understanding?
I think this particular internet trend is focused on the ability to recognize your individual voice to do whatever you want to do with the machine. Whether that's command Alexa to take out the garbage or whatever.
There has been a huge improvement.
I believe there has been a huge improvement, right?
I was trying to use these things 6-7 years ago and said, let's say I would say call Elena, my wife. It would immediately start calling Nicola, one of my friends in Italy. It could never learn Elena. But now, no problem. I can.
Why didn't you just say call my wife?
That would be fantastic. Yes. I have to go to this old generation phones.
Well, I say that kind of as a joke because what we did in the old days, right, is that we did the workaround because you figured out it couldn't recognize you. And I also have noticed that I do many fewer workarounds because it's actually getting good enough to recognize it. So there's the Amazon Echo growth over the last 3 years. And its skill base basically is growing. And then this is the installed base in terms of the number of units that have been installed. And you see, again, this sort of exponential growth in the last 3 quarters of 2017. So I think these numbers are really interesting because this is a new part of the economy because this now works, right? Whereas it didn't work that well before, people wouldn't buy it. How many of you actually own an Amazon? How many of you own the Google? Some of you have both? So do you bake off between them? Okay.
So once I told a joke, happy everyone
So, last section here, growth and scrutiny. I just thought this was really fascinating, and then I'll get on to information about the department. But here's the principle: if companies can collect data, they can improve your experience, and they can improve your ability to engage with whatever tool you're using. But that comes with this scrutiny. And I'm going to give you examples from the Meeker report of that happening this year. Okay, so first of all, collective data providing a better experience. Here are examples. Some of you may be involved in these. So how many of you are on Facebook? 2.2 billion people worldwide are on Facebook. Has the experience in using Facebook gotten better? Most people would say that it has because of the way they've changed things like the news feed. Here we have Pinterest, Spotify, and Netflix. I can speak to the Netflix thing because we use that on our smart TV, and I can tell you that it does make interesting suggestions, and the interface is better. It collects data that I think is useful about what I like to watch, what I've watched before. Other examples, navigation and maps, Waze. How many of you have used Waze? Do you feel like the data that is collected by Waze ends up feeding back to you in anything helpful? For example, traffic, suggested alternate route. So what's happening there, right, is that the company's figured out how to collect real-time data about what's going on the highway, and then it can help you understand your situation relative to that time-changing environment, which didn't happen before. That's sort of Waze's bread and butter. Likewise, you have these other sort of real-time platforms that give you instant feedback by collecting data, and and people really like this actually. So they don't mind having data collected like when you're driving, because that provides input to be able to figure out if there's traffic somewhere, right? Internet companies can have their low price services be better in part because they can collect that data and then improve their service. Users, so that's the company. The users actually increase their time because there's value. And the value comes from the data that's been collected. But what's interesting is the regulators have actually increased scrutiny because of that very thing. And that's going to be called by Meeker the paradox. So here you see that Facebook's annualized revenue per user continues to rise. And Meeker would argue from this graph, again, time on the horizontal axis and dollars per user on the vertical axis, increased over the last 3-4 years from $16 per user to $34. Meeker would argue that that increase is happening because the data is being collected, and that data provides value, and that's why more money per user is being spent. But here are the examples of increased scrutiny. Data privacy, European data protection right, regulation will be applicable as of May 25th in all member states to harmonize data privacy laws across Europe. Facebook's collection and use of data from third-party sources is abusive. German Federal Cartel Office. Taxes, lower right. Commission finds Luxembourg gave illegal tax benefits to Amazon worth around 250 million euro. Okay, and here you have these statements from Zuckerberg. We're an idealistic and optimistic company. The first decade we really focused on the good. It's clear now that we didn't do enough. We didn't focus enough on preventing abuse and thinking through how people could use these tools to do harm as well. So this is one of the really important trends going on. That's why Meeker highlights it. And here's the quote from Bloomberg that talks about what's going on in Europe. As it comes into force, Europe should be mindful of unintended consequences and open to change when things go wrong. So the summary here, it's crucial to manage for unintended consequences. It's irresponsible to stop innovation and progress. This tension is not going to go away. Meeker points it out as a trend now. You guys are going to be involved in this in spades. Okay? Privacy, security, collection of people's data, management of that. It's going to happen. That's why I kicked off with this. So I hope you found those things to be interesting. I'm going to pivot now to some information about our department and to answer your questions in the remaining time that I have about what's going on here at UK. So, some numbers. We've increased our enrollment slightly in the incoming year from 110 last year to 120 incoming students. Best guess at this point. We have just under 600 total CS students enrolled at the undergraduate level in our fall cohort. And we have now grown to 26 faculty members at UK in Computer Science. So those are some numbers for you. And I would like to highlight one of our most recent lecturers who's joined the team. He's actually in the back. So Jeff, you want to say hi?
Hello.
So Jeff Chartos just joined the team in the last few weeks, and he is helping us this semester doing CS 499 and 498, right?
Yes.
So I encourage you to go ahead and get to know Jeff. He's our newest addition to 26 faculty members. And he comes to us from Galmont/SQS/ whatever the very last name of the company was. And industry, basically software testing, so he has deep experience in what's going on right now in industry, especially in testing. Okay, and that whole preamble with Meeker also leads me to point out Dr. Judy Goldsmith, because she teaches our class on ethics. And I just can't imagine a more fraught environment, right? To be able to understand what is our ethical responsibility than the current environment with managing people's data, finding the responsibility that we have to find to be able to do that well and professionally. So I wanted to point to Dr. Goldsmith because she's here today. Take the chance to get to know her and look for her class, because as you move through the program, you'll see when that's offered. You can take the class. These images you can find on the departmental webpage. All of the faculty are listed, and they have very consolidated portraits on our departmental webpage, so that if you just explore that, you can find all the people who are doing interesting things here in the department. One of our faculty members, Dr. Ting Ting Yu, comes to us from the University of Nebraska. She's been here now at least 4 years, right?
Yes.
Is Ting Ting here? There you are. Yeah. Just wanted to point Ting Ting out. It turns out Ting Ting won a very prestigious award last year, right? And was highlighted in our engineering magazine. For those of you who want to poke around a little, you can find that very nice article about her work and the software testing that she does. You can also take a look for Nathan Jacobs, who's back from sabbatical. Nathan, are you here?
Yep.
Yay, Nathan, okay. Machine learning guy, it's never been more popular to be a machine learning guy, right, than now, and computer vision, right? You can find Nathan up on the 3rd floor and spilling into the lab area with all of the research that he's doing. If you're interested in machine learning in the cloud or other computer image-based methods, you might want to check him out. I don't know what's your most recent result, Nathan? I haven't.
I don't really know exactly what. We've been keeping busy, I'll say.
Yeah, I know you've been busy, so you can't put your finger on it because there are too many, right? That's okay. So if you want to know more, I grabbed the directory as it stands and just took a screenshot. But just go to the webpage and you can look at all of our faculty. We have an open door policy and people have office hours, so you can come by and chat with anybody as you feel the need. All right, let me talk a little bit about facilities. 9 minutes. This building used to be a pile of dirt, and those of us who are old like me remember just the dirt. And so when we walk into this facility, we're amazed and blessed by its existence. Because this building is a great fit for what we do. We have this auditorium for these meetings. It's a great venue. It feels great to be up here in such a beautiful venue with seating for you. It's also the heart of the department. So behind me is where the departmental offices are. And that's where all the key administrators sit to help you get through your program. So this is really the place where you can find departmental activities, and I hope that you can also find some community. So we have gatherings like this. We want you to come because it's interesting to hear about things that are going on, but we also want you to come because it can help us develop community. We can get to know each other hang around with each other, and then share ideas. This is where the picnic is going to be, actually. This is an exterior shot. And we're going to open up these doors, and we'll have a picnic outside. If it's as hot on the picnic day as it is today, yeah, I don't know what we'll do. We'll probably just sit out there and swelter a little bit, maybe. Yeah.
What do you mean open up these doors?
The side doors will open up, and we'll start inside, and then we'll flow out to a tent that we'll have set up out on this lawn.
Okay, so
We
that is
don't mean
not
that we're going to
the
open
door.
up this door. This is not like a garage door. That would be cool, though. That would be very cool. There's no like Batmobile that goes out. Okay. And so just to point out, because this is our facility, every floor has a place where you can hang out. This is the theater floor, first floor. And you can hang out in this theater when it's not being used. If you go up the stairs, in the corners on the second and third floor, there are also hangout spots where you can just sit around, wait to meet somebody, or just do your work. And we encourage you to do that. That's what we want this building to be, is a destination for you to feel comfortable and hang out. We also have space in the building next door. So the building next door, which if this were open, you could see through this window, is called the Hardy-Bun Building. And this Hardy-Bun Building, second floor, contains computer science offices as well as some lab space. So some of your faculty are actually located there. You can tell who they are by looking at the webpage, or you can just go over there and take a look around. That building also has hangout space. So if you go over there and go to the second floor, there's an atrium area. We call it the comma. And that's because if you look at the floor plan, it looks like kind of a big comma where that curved desk is sitting. Can you see at the center there? Yeah, with maybe a quote or an apostrophe. You can hang out there. There's a kitchen, there's a sets of tables, and we launched that building almost 2 decades ago. So Jim, I'll point you out since you're here. Jim is the director of the Laboratory for Advanced Networking, which is housed in that building, and most of the faculty are affiliated. So you're inviting all the students to come over and knock on your door, right? And, yes, exactly. So please feel free to go over there and explore. And if you take a look at these two buildings situated where we are, we really have one of the nicest places on campus, I think. And we're a little bit apart, so you might think it's a bit of a hike, but Memorial Coliseum is iconic, right? And the basketball team practices in the Joe Crabb Center with the national trophies, right? National championship trophies in the trophy case, right? In between those things. You can walk in any time if you want inspiration from the basketball team, and you can see those national championship trophies. And those of you oldsters like me, I mean, this photo, this Google Earth shot shows sort of how it's changed over time, when it was nothing but a parking lot, and now is this building. So we're really blessed to have this facility. We expect you and want you to make use of it. Now I want to point to our staff so that you know who they are. You can find all of our staff on the webpage, and there are profiles of them with contact information. An amazingly capable staff, and those staff members are here to help you get through your program and solve problems and encourage you. So I want to highlight a few key people who are important. First of all, Amy will greet you in the first floor entrance area and help you find who you need if you have an appointment. And Amy can also help you with basic administrative questions so that you can find the right person. Okay, so Amy will be there to greet you. You'll find for advising that Kathy will help you, and her office is also in this first floor suite. Kathy's very experienced at understanding our curriculum and all the problems that go along with both graduate and undergraduate administrative issues. And so your advising appointments, for example, will be with Kathy in the first floor. There's her contact information, again, all available on the website. Dee is not to be missed because she's the one who puts you on payroll if you're going to be paid. Yeah, so Dee can help you solve problems like you forgot to enter your hours and you need to so that you get paid, or you have a timesheet, you don't know what to do with it. Dee's the one who helps us manage all of our payroll and financial issues within the department. Again, as the college business, as the department business analyst, she's also available in the first floor suite. And finally, Paul, who runs our IT department, would be glad to help you when EduGrowth doesn't work and when other things go wrong. Right, Paul?
Yeah, I want to modify that graph of the number of Wi-Fi access points on the globe because it was shorter last week.
Yes, it was. So our infrastructure is amazing, and Paul takes exceptional care of it. So he's the one who helps us from things that go from the VMs that you use in your classes all the way through the research infrastructure. So you can find Paul's contact information there. All right, I'm going to begin the denouement, the wind up, the wrap up, because I only have 2 minutes left. Dr. Finkel is incredibly strict about time, so I'm not going to run over even by a minute. Calendar points. The 4 p.m. slot's going to be here every week for keeping current. Picnics on Tuesday the 13th. The September 24 and 25 date is the fall job fair, not to be missed. Even if you think you're not quite ready to go out, you need to be over there poking around with our industry partners. On Friday, the 19th of October, we'll celebrate homecoming as a university. So those are the key fall points for you to engage this year. If you Google this, you can find everything at the university website.
Brent, don't forget, we're gonna have an industry fair at 4 p.m. right before the picnic in here.
And the 13th is a Thursday.
Yeah, the 13th is not a Tuesday.
Sorry, Thursday the 13th.
Okay.
Thursday the 13th,
So-
industry here from 4 to 5, and then picnic.
Typo, but you will get an email as well, Thursday the 13th. And that hour before is actually really important because industry will be here. Our closest partners will be here to talk exclusively with you, not anyone else in the College of Engineering. It's just for our department. So please do come that hour early if you can, before the picnic, and then we'll, of course, feed you for free. Yeah, there's the information about keeping current. And finally, I want to point to the student groups. If you haven't engaged with either ACM or ACMW, I encourage you to go ahead and do that because our student groups are pretty active and can really help you engage culturally and also with some really interesting technical stuff that's going on. All right. Do we have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions?
Sure, one question. Take a good one.
Not even one? Really?
That's all very clear. Thank you.
It was all very clear. All right, thank you very much.